Deep inside the White House, the sitting president, not on the ballot, but desperate to keep the system intact, took another call. The air in the Oval Office was thick, tasting of fear and stale coffee, like cordite after a shot. "Mr. President," the French leader's voice was tight, "you must ensure stability. The markets will not tolerate this experiment." He hung up, and another line lit Beijing. The voice was cold. "We trust you understand the implications of an ungoverned America. It would create unacceptable economic shock." A third call, a Gulf state prince, his voice smooth as oil. "My friend, a delay is perhaps in order. A recount. These things are complex. We can offer quiet money for a legal delay." Some leaders begged, others threatened. "Do you know what you're unleashing?" The president looked at his sleepless advisors. Can we intervene? Freeze the count? An emergency power?" The lawyers shook their heads. "Too soon, sir," one said, his voice gray. "Too naked, too dangerous. It would be a coup. We have to let it play out." The president stared at the television, where the map of his country was being repainted in a color he did not recognize. The ground was gone. Back in the arena, the crowd shivered as the giant map updated again. Georgia flipped teal. The room erupted. Not a roar, but a strange, rolling sound, like a tide hitting seawalls, disbelief turning to exhilaration. Strangers hugged, their bodies shaking. A man in a Union jacket wiped his eyes, unashamed. Lena Morales pressed a hand to her mouth, her shoulders shaking once. She wasn't crying for the win. She was crying for the patient she'd lost last spring, the one the automated algorithm had denied. Vail didn't speak. He kept his eyes on the screens, the way a carpenter might look at a beam to see if it would hold. Around him, the core team, finally visible in the wings. Samira Al-Najar, her face lit by the glow of 3 laptops, her fingers flying over keys as if defusing a bomb, monitoring the network's integrity. Rachel Kim, legal pad in hand, her eyes already wargaming the injunctions she knew were coming by dawn. Diego and Malik, standing side by side, the cynic and the realist, watching the impossible become fact. The world was watching a number climb. Not final, not yet, but enough to make old party strategists sweat through their suits. It wasn't a landslide and it wasn't safe, but it was breaking every map they'd trusted for a lifetime. Counties that had voted one way for generations were turning a new color. Models built on decades of data were failing live on television. Something unprecedented was happening. An outsider movement, an AI, and a man who spoke less than his enemies wished, was forcing the 2 oldest parties in America to watch the ground shift beneath them. The cameras kept panning, hungry for tells. A wince from a campaign chair, a fist pump from a volunteer, a glance between rivals that might mean concession. The anchors spoke softer now, as if raising their voices might jinx something sacred. In living rooms and laundromats and midnight buses, people leaned closer to the glow. It felt like listening for a heartbeat in the dark. In the arena, the air shifted. It wasn't noise, it was charge, the kind of static that lifts the hair on your arms when weather changes on open water. Conversations died in mid-sentence, phones hovered in hands. Vail didn't move. He stood as if bracing for wind, eyes on the screens, the way a builder watches a span take its own weight across the country, the familiar rituals of election night, pizza boxes, coffee rings, maps updated on whiteboards in cramped headquarters, suddenly looked small against the size of the moment. The old parties had their rooms and their music and their lines ready, but every prepared sentence now felt like it belonged to yesterday. Somewhere far from the lights, porches creaked as neighbors who'd never shared more than a wave found themselves talking about power and rent and futures. In a dim hospital hallway in Phoenix, a nurse on her 3rd double shift of the week, her shoes slick with things she didn't want to name, scrolled through results on her phone. She saw the teal hold in Ohio. She whispered, "If this is real, Maybe my loans end with me. She leaned her head against the cool tile. Just for a second, a trucker killed his engine at a lonely Nevada gas station to watch a flickering TV with a stranger. They didn't speak. They just nodded once when Texas split 3 ways, a thing that had never happened. The trucker went inside and bought the stranger a coffee. He didn't know why. A teacher in Arizona set an alarm to wake her kids if it happened, then stayed glued to the screen, unable to miss it herself. She was watching a new textbook being written in real time, one she might actually want to teach.